Let's say you're doing just a job. Maybe you're fixing the plumbing, or maybe you're putting a deck on your patio, something like that, something concrete. And let's say that you're down there working, and that every time you take an action, every time you tighten a screw or drive a nail, there's somebody over there, over your shoulder, watching and saying, "No, not like that, you idiot. That's not the way you do it. What's the matter with you? Anybody could have done it better than that." If somebody was criticizing every single thing you did like that after every action, what would your actual reaction be? Because I know what mine would be. Mine would be, "All right then, genius, you come down here and do it yourself." And most people who are loudmouths about this kind of thing will never take you up on the challenge. And the reason they won't take you up on the challenge is because it's very easy to criticize something when your only standard of measurement is against some idealized idea of perfection. In other words, if I see somebody building a deck, I can say, "No, not like that." Well, then how? Well, it's not up to me. I'm just criticizing. Well, how would you do it better? I don't know, just not like that. You have a standard that is impossible to reach because it's not a real world standard. It's an imaginary standard of perfection. Well, yesterday, the day before the inauguration, he was up 1. Donald Trump was +1. Today, as I record this on Wednesday afternoon, January 20th, Donald Trump is up 3. Donald Trump is up 3 against Joe Biden, and Joe Biden has yet to get down and do the job. Joe Biden has been the guy saying, "What's the matter with you? Why are you doing it like that? Why couldn't you do it better? Why didn't you handle COVID better? Why didn't you handle the economy better? Why didn't you handle foreign relations better?" Turns out that Trump handled all of these very, very well. But when you've got nothing to compare it to, in other words, if you're comparing Trump's record on COVID against Biden's imaginary perfection record on COVID, then you can convince people that maybe Trump's not handling things so well. But today, for the first time, Joe Biden has to function in the real world. And in a minute, I'm going to read to you a series of headlines just taken from Instapundit today, in no particular order, and show you how things are going to get so much better for our side now that the left has to function in the real world. And as a consequence of functioning in the real world, they can no longer hide the truth, because the truth has to be acted upon because it's in reality. You can no longer paper over everything that they said Biden is or wanted to be. Now he has to do it, which means there's a trail of actual action. But before I get to that, one last word about the membership drive. We had a challenge to gain 1,000 new members by January 20th, and we didn't make 1,000 new members by January 20th. We made 1,069 new members by January 20th. I'm so unspeakably proud of all of you, and the hard work that you continue to do, and to share a portion of that with us is very, very moving. I'm very pleased to announce that as a result of this successful membership drive, and you will not hear me talk about membership for another 3 months, other than to say we're welcome to have you join us. But as a result of that, I made a phone call earlier today, and starting tomorrow, Thursday morning, after we record Moving Back to America Live, we're going to start recording a brand new show. It's going to be 2 episodes a week, at least starting out, and it's going to be a conversation between myself and a person who I admire very, very much, and that person is Alfonso Rachel. We're going to be talking about virtue. We're going to be talking about the philosophy and the morality of the politics, not inside baseball and what's actually happening. We're going to be talking about why things are good and why things aren't good from an absolute moral point of view. For those of you not familiar with Zoe, he's an absolute warrior. His voice is so powerful and so important that he's been utterly banned from YouTube. And to his enormous credit, he raised that concern with me when we were talking about doing this. So my response to that was simply this, and this is what I'm telling you. My response to that was, well, we're going to do the show anyway, and we'll put it up on YouTube. If they decide that they're going to ban Zoe from a show that we do talking about simply morality, that's fine. Then we'll host the videos on Rumble or BitChute or someplace else, and then we'll start advertising. We'll start advertising for people to see the show that is so destructive to the left, the show that is so dangerous to the left, that it simply had to be banned outright for no particular reason other than because of the person that was on camera. I say go ahead and ban it. I don't think they're going to do that, but if they do, I think that's fantastic. And that also goes to some of the headlines that we're going to read. Now, I've also talked to a few other people, names that will be very familiar with you, and talked to them about trying to get some new content on there too, because the reward for new membership is more content. And we are certainly going to be adding 2 shows a week with Zoe, and I'd like to add quite a few more. But nevertheless, all of that is due to the members who've been here from the beginning, who've kept us going, and the number of people that have just joined recently. We're hearing emails from people in Canada. We got an email from somebody in Madagascar, truthfully. South America, all around the world. People are saying, we really like what you're doing with this new idea to politics. And the forum at BillWhittle.com continues to grow. And that's something I'll be paying a lot more attention to now that this push is over, now that the inauguration has come and gone. Now we can get down to the serious work of getting this country back. But back to business. Let me just add one thing here. You know, the truth is kind of like a pet dog. The truth is like a good pet dog from your childhood. If you're kind to the truth, and if you respect the truth, and if you treat the truth well, and you treat the truth as if it's important, then the truth will stand by you through thick and thin. The truth will give its life for you. The truth is something to be respected, and it's something to be revered. And if you do that, then the truth is your friend. But, as in the case of a pet dog, if you do nothing but kick the truth and starve it and beat it and rub its nose in things for no reason and just basically torture it and go to all the way to the point of putting out cigarettes on its skin, then what you're going to find is that the truth is going to bite you hard. It's going to bite you hard. It's going to fight back. And that is what we're seeing already on day one. The truth now, the actual truth of reality, is starting to come into contact with the left. And this is from the first day. So let's just take a quick ride, shall we? See what we have here. Now the Washington Post admits that Trump did not incite the Capitol riot. Why would they admit that now? The thing I think that needs to be said again and again and again, looking at all of these headlines, is you're watching the show because you understand that there's a level beneath what you're being told. You're watching the show because some people would call you political junkies, but a better term is somebody who's interested in the truth and is willing to go looking for it. I keep bringing this up, and sometimes people take a swipe at me for like making excuses for the left, but I'm not making excuses for the left. What I am doing, however, is saying that huge numbers, tens of millions of people that voted for Joe Biden have no idea who Joe Biden is or what he's about. All they know is what they've been told. And you can't fault somebody for coming to a bad decision if all they've been given is bad information. And so that's why I want to cover these headlines. So the first one, the Washington Post admits that Trump did not incite the Capitol riot. Why are they admitting that now? People who read the Post, people who voted for Joe Biden, liberals, are going to start wondering, wait a minute, you told us that he did. Now that Biden is actually in office, he didn't? It's going to create a little cognitive dissonance, I think. Joe Biden's first executive orders endanger national security. He stopped construction on the border wall. Americans want the border wall by a large margin. That's really what got Donald Trump elected. They want the borders protected. Joe Biden has announced that he's going to stop construction on the wall. He's also announced that he's lifting what he calls the Muslim ban, which was never a ban against Muslims. It was just a ban against people coming into the country from known terrorist locations. Joe Biden's opening those up. Whether anything catastrophic happens as a result of that, and I certainly wish it doesn't, nevertheless, there's an action. You can criticize Trump for locking people out of the country for coming from terrorist nations, but if it turns out that terrorists are coming into the country now as a result of Joe Biden reversing that action, and anything happens as a result of that, that's where reality meets the truth. That's where they live. They can't paper that over. Here's another one. Biden commits to rejoining the Paris Accords. The Paris Accords, if you know anything about the Paris Accords, are climate accords. But what most people don't know about the Paris Accords is that the Paris Accords are structured like this. The committee basically wrote every country in the world and said, what would you be willing to do in order to reduce carbon emissions? And all of the countries that responded basically said, well, we would like to reduce carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. There's no teeth in it. There's no commitment to it. There's no practical reason for it. You could have had China say, we would like to be carbon neutral in 2023, and that would have gone into the Paris Accords. It has nothing to do with reality. But what does have to do with reality is the fact that now American energy is going to get a lot more expensive, and we're going to be doing it so that we can join a group of people that are just simply posturing. America is the only country in the world that significantly reduced its carbon emissions, and I mean major reductions in carbon emissions. The only country in the world that's done it, and we did it because of fracking. We did it because of clean natural gas in the place of coal and oil. We're now an oil exporter. All of this is not entirely due to Donald Trump, but without question, he accelerated that procedure. Without question. So Donald Trump made the climate cleaner for the United States. Joe Biden's going to shut all these things down. The climate's going to get dirtier. Energy is going to get more expensive. The United States is going to do less well in the climate accords, if you believe in those kind of things. Speaking of climate change, here's another one. Biden's climate team says that climate change is happening because of systemic racism. Now, I can assure you that the huge majority of people that voted for Joe Biden did not vote for higher energy prices because electricity is racist. This is going to come as quite a shock to them, believe it or not. It is going to come as quite a shock to them. This is all on the first day. President Trump's farewell address. I go from this majestic place with a loyal and joyful heart. What a graceful, elegant, and magnificent way to put it. In the last 48 hours, Donald Trump has behaved with extraordinary grace, and I'm very, very proud of him. I think that for 2 weeks or 3 weeks there, he was at his worst because he was under the most stress of his life. And the stress comes from, in my opinion, based on the evidence I've seen, the stress comes from being in the right and having every single opportunity to make that case shut down for whatever procedural reasons. Donald Trump's a fighter. That's why he was elected. And the reason he didn't concede the election was because he's convinced he won it. And I'm convinced he won it too. But that's not here nor there anymore. It's pointless to rehash this. The anger from this is going to stay with me, I'm sure, forever. But I'm not going to be consumed by the anger. I'm not going to make it into waste heat. I'm going to use it for actual work and generate some steam pressure. Nevertheless, it is a very, very good image of Donald Trump on the way out. And that's going to be how people remember him. And that's what's going to matter in the months and year to come. YouTube extends the Trump suspension for another week. Good. Good. I want that known. I want it known that YouTube is censoring people because I want people to realize that YouTube is not a carrier, they're a publisher. Now, whether Biden acts on this or not is not really relevant. What is relevant is I want it in the absolute open that the old school media, social media outlets are actively censoring people based on ideology. You and I have known this forever, but I want it out there. I want everybody to know it. There's no way to deny that the president has been locked out of Twitter or YouTube. So even those people who think that Trump is a complete lunatic have to acknowledge that his freedom of speech and his ability to communicate has been arbitrarily curtailed. That's good. That works to our advantage, as you'll see. Right below that, Brave browser takes a step forward enabling a decentralized web. Well, right after the story about YouTube and all the rest of it, here's a story about a web browser that is at least making an attempt to keep your information private. And that is extremely good news for us, not just because it's available as a tool, but because internet privacy is something that everybody's interested in. People who voted for Joe Biden don't want their information being shared. And if you can't share the information, then they can't control the information. Google, Facebook, Twitter got Joe Biden into the White House because of their selective shutting down of one point of view. I've known they were going to do this for 4 years. They came out right and said so. After 2016, they said Hillary lost because the rabble out there got to hear about the email scandal and all the rest of it. Well, we're not going to let that happen again. And they pulled it off in 2020. There's no arguing with that. You just have to face it. They pulled it off. But they crippled themselves doing it. And they didn't just cripple themselves. They mortally wounded themselves. Folks, I'm as convinced of this as I can be. And this is just more evidence. We're going to see more evidence every day. Big tech put itself out of business in order to get Joe Biden in the White House. Now, they did do that, and that's going to be a catastrophe. But they mortally wounded themselves to do it. So my concerns about them cheating one election means they can cheat all of the elections in terms of, forget voter fraud for a minute, in terms of information manipulation. No, it's not true. What they've done is they have forced people to realize the degree of manipulation they're dealing with and making people go to alternative sites. And along those very same lines, anti-Facebook MeWe social networks adds 2.5 million new members in 1 week. My God, that's better than we did. A social network works because, brace yourself, because of the network effect. In other words, Facebook is valuable and MeWe wasn't because everybody was on Facebook and nobody was on MeWe. It's in order for an alternative network to actually become useful, there have to be enough people on it. And prior to Facebook becoming as dictatorial and as evil as it's become, there was no reason to move to MeWe. But when you add 2.5 million users in 1 week, and you can pretty much assume that most of those users are going to be conservatives because they are more aware of the information manipulation than people who are on the left or even in the middle. Well, that's a sign that Facebook is over as a monopoly. There's going to be a parallel Facebook, and we can talk to each other on that. And we're not going to just get conservatives. We're going to get people who don't want their information censored, monetized, all the rest. Biden taps Pennsylvania's transgendered health secretary. Now, I don't have anything against transgendered people, and if a transgendered person happens to be a really good administrator or whatever, then fantastic. I'm glad they have the job. But I suspect that that's not the case. I suspect that this is an appointment designed to indicate to his far left base that Joe Biden's on board. However, if this Secretary of Health and Human Services, presumably, starts issuing like really nutty directives, then people will start rightfully asking themselves, why was this person selected in the first place? Why did they pick this person who clearly knows nothing about public health and is putting these incredibly insane ideological restrictions on public health? Once again, the truth and reality are going to hit the people that voted for the Democrats in the face, and there's no way they can get around it. Just a couple more because I'm in a good mood. Hillary Clinton is still wild and obsessed about Trump and Putin. Good. That's good. Heaven forbid they change their policies or that they actually start doing something forward-looking. That would be bad for us. Here's an article that says that James Comey, FBI director, wants to, quote, burn down the GOP. Good. Good. I'm glad you said that, Jim. I'm glad to know that you are on the record having personally said that you want to burn down a political party, because God knows that the FBI could never be influenced by political considerations. That was just right-wing fantasy. Now we have the FBI director saying that's his intention, is to burn down a political party. And so when people say the FBI was colluding in these other things, before today, you could have denied it. Now you've got the FBI director saying, no, that's my intention. I want to destroy the political party of Donald Trump and the people in there. Here's a story that says the wife of Boston Marathon hero claims that Biden groped her. All of those creepy Uncle Joe videos are going to surface now. They're going to surface because they could never have been hidden forever. You can't keep the truth down forever. You can pin it to the mat for a little while. But now that's going to come out. And now we're going to start seeing all of these videos about Gropey Joe. And people are going to say, why didn't we see this before the election? Now we get to the point. They're not just going to see that Joe Biden wasn't the guy that they thought he was. They're going to see that they were lied to consistently, repeatedly, extensively lied to, and they're going to see it with their own eyes. And there's no way the left can protect them from this. For example, this is actually, I think this is the gold nugget of all of them. Politico is no longer covering up Biden's cognitive dissonance. You can only cover that up for a while, you know. Joe Biden got the nomination, and whether he fairly or unfairly won the election, he did it because COVID provided an opportunity for him not to appear in public. Well, you don't get to not appear in public when you're the president. And you don't get to prepare statements when you're the president. The president has to deal with situations in real time. And anybody who's watched Joe Biden, and Sky News in Australia, by the way, has been doing an amazing job of that. Their coverage of the entire election was just first rate. Now, the American people are going to see what they elected. They're not going to see the presentation of what they thought they were getting. They're going to see what they actually got. Buyer's remorse is coming in a series of semi-trucks, an entire convoy of all of these things are coming out now. None of it came out before the election. And again, the entire point here, and the reason that I'm feeling so optimistic today, I feel better today than I have at any time since about, no, I don't want to, maybe 10 p.m. Pacific on November 3rd, 2020. Just on one day's scan of the news, we find a dozen cases where the American people are going to realize that they've been lied to and lied to badly, and there's no way to escape this going forward. When the full effect of what they've done hits the people who had no idea really what they were buying what they were sold, what they were advertised, then things are going to get real interesting. Folks, what looks like to me from here today on the 20th of January is simply this. The people who voted for Joe Biden went to a car dealer and bought a new car, and they were told there was a 5-year warranty and all the rest of the stuff. And they got in the car and they started it up, and they were never really particularly in love with this particular car, but it was a new car, so they took it out for a drive. And about a quarter of a mile down the street, the transmission falls out of the car. Now, the transmission falling out of the car is a problem But their real problem is not the transmission falling out of the car. In fact, what I'm saying is that the left's real problem is not that they won't be able to deliver on what they said they were going to be able to deliver on. If you buy a new car from a lot and you had a salesman tell you about all these wonderful guarantees and features, and you drive this thing down the road and the transmission falls out, you're going to go back to that car dealer and you're going to be in a bad mood. And if it turns out that he's not going to honor your warranty because he can't, then you're going to be in a really, really bad mood. And that's what's happening on day one of the Joe Biden administration. You cannot continue to beat and kick the truth without it biting you back. And it bit them back hard today, and it's going to get worse and worse for them and better for us every day that goes by. Thank you again for all of you who stepped up and made this commitment. It's, as I said before, not just important from a resources point of view, it's very important from a personal point of view. I am very grateful to all of you, and I am determined to work as hard as I can to continue to add content, continue to do these shows, and start to organize this message. A lot's going on at the forum at BillWhittle.com. If you've just joined and become a member there, I'm going to be spending much more time in there as the days go by. But I've never felt this good about a catastrophe in my entire life.